Lexicon of Odds and Tales. Copyright 2025. Charles Arlington. Story 3, The Heirloom's Purge. Glowing a bright orange hue into the metal ceiling above, the circular frame of a descending plate of metal came crushing down upon a haggard hell demon. "Rah!" shrilled the dying beast. Retrieving his thermosplicer with his left hand, a man in a hulking suit of hardened ceramite, ceramic and titanium-fused armor plating, had unveiled his fission blade, a sharp blade with coils of burning heat glowing bright within the dark interiors of the vessel he had entered. Thrashing his blade clean through another hell demon, the armored soldier cut through an additional row of 3 hell demons' bodies, with each body burning upon contact with his fission blade. Heated chunks of splayed blood and flesh coated the incoming beasts as they shrilled to the sudden conflict and cindered chunks. An innumerable horde converged upon the armored man as 5 more armored soldiers came descending throughout the far recesses of a large atrium, blasting through the ceiling using their thermosplicers with maximum descent velocity. Many hell beasts scattered throughout the dark pathways, where flickering lights above went completely dark, with no source of power for light besides the light visors and bulbs atop each armored unit's visor and shoulders, revealing their surroundings. "Enter the main sanctum. Cover my flanks," shouted a man with the insignia of a burning hawk atop his chest and back. "Aye, Sorvectus," shouted each power soldier across the atrium's many halls, each communicating by a message transponder. Thrusting his fission blade through the encroaching fangs of a hell beast, Sorvectus plunged the blade deep into its neck, letting go of his blade. Thrusting his right arm out, Sorvectus aimed a medium-sized tube of ceramite encasing atop his wrist towards the encroaching horde, with a slow churn of a terrible menace inside. "Brr-rah!" the wrist cannon hissed, met by the glowing head of a fanged and scaled creature flying out, painted by the mythical colors of green and gold. The wrist cannon's spirit soared out, splicing through 14 hellbeasts' heads and legs with a speed unlike even the deadliest of flamethrowers. Spiraling through the dark atrium's pathways and platforms, the mythical creature absorbed the slain beasts as quickly as they were killed, consuming all in its path. With the right wrist cannon emptying its nozzle of the full spirit creature's being outward, Sorvectus lifted his left wrist up towards his face, revealing a small map of the interior battleship. "The Draster Gorge is loose. We make pace for the channeling sector," ordered Sorvectus. "Aye, aye," roared the intercom's 5 power soldiers. Revealing a chain and bolt pistol from his hip, Sorvectus shot a hook right into an oncoming hellbeast, impaling its left abdomen, activating the burrowing tip to extend out into a net of barbs and spikes from inside the beast's torso. "Ah!" seethed the hellbeast's frothing mouth, dying upon the barbed net's expansion. Retrieving his fission blade from the gored and charred neck of the previously slain hell demon, Sorvectus journeyed down the corridor ahead of him, cutting through the horde demons. Leveraging the corded extension of his pistol's circular barb effigy, Sorvectus swung the impaled creature's remains into his farthest enemies as the ball of barbs shredded apart their skin and hides. The demonic beasts shrieked with pain and death as the metal ball's effigy of the barbed demon clobbered through the endless horde. Dragging the metal ball left and right, Sorvectus paved a way forward before journeying down a narrow staircase, which leads straight to the main gathering point of the atrium. Regrouping with his squadron of 5 supporting soldiers, Sorvectus met eyes with each man, as all carried the insignia of hounds chained down by cables and whips atop the power armor's chests and backs. "Sorvectus, 29 exterminations and counting," boomed the first power soldier, impaling a hell demon with a hardened spear of pure blood. Activating the suction door upon his right wrist's thin, vertical processing container. The power soldier sucked up the bloodied remains of the surrounding dead hell demons before the processing container atop his wrist churned and funneled the hardening blood through a tube into a spear ejector at the bottom of his right wrist. "Excellent, Bystar's Hound Wrangler," boomed Sorvectus, pronouncing the battle unit's platoon specification. Sorvectus looked to the others as they impaled and gored the screeching horde of hell beasts, each using their fission blades, hound wranglers. To my side, 2 to my back, 2 on my sides, and another to slay ahead. Flying above, the Draster Gorge spurted huge miasmic pools of boiling hell demon guts, all which corroded and melted away at the approaching beast's legs as they persisted their endless onslaught. Looking to his left wrist's map, Sorvectus looked to the 5 power soldiers. "Down the right-facing blaster doors, now!" commanded Sorvectus, activating his leg's hydraulic sprinting speed. The platoon of power soldiers each entered a 55 miles per hour running formation, with Sorvectus releasing his impalement gun's corded barb ball out against the encroaching horde as they fumbled atop one another in their greatest mass to his right. With the impaled hook expanding into a barbed effigy, Sorvectus activated skitter drones upon the ball's landing, each hooking across the outer frame of the barbed net. Detaching the impalement cord from the effigy ball, Sorvectus's skitter drones rolled across the atrium at autonomous control, bulldozing with 20 miles per hour speed of serrating force. Loading another of his hook gun's impalement rounds, Sorvectus's platoon reached the blaster door, which held the small charred frame of a previously heat-spliced entry point. Ahead of Sorvectus called the second power soldier. "It'll be done, Voosvicer," boomed the power soldier's transponder feed. Lifting his power suit's right leg, the power soldier kicked through the right side of the heat-spliced door's small frame before crouching beneath it, bending the top of the frame outward and thrusting his left fist in towards the left side of the blast door's frame, overall denting the small frame enough that the Hound Wrangler's squad could pass through at single file. "Inside, now!" shouted the second power soldier, activating his chain machine gun against a suddenly roaring hellworm of horrific tendrils and flesh spikes, one which had slumbered behind this doorway. "Grrr! Ree!" hissed the hellworm, sludging its massive body towards the power soldier as he laid it down with incendiary rounds. Engulfing the beast with flames, the secondary soldier raised up his right wrist cannon, which released 2 drones that displayed a temperature-neutral diginet in front of the power soldier's position. Blasting a hyper-pressurized blast of chilling vapor into the temperature-neutral net, the vapor particles instantly froze upon contact as the inside of the temperature net separated the heat outside from the inside of the thin veil, with the frozen vapor particles exiting the other side in a velocity of 500 miles per second. Piercing the worm's flesh with the wrist cannon's chilling shards, the temperature net drones swiftly reconnected to the power soldier's wrist nodes before the ice shards contacted the flames within the emblazed worm's innards, therein exploding upon contact inside. Exploding from inside out, the hellworm's innards coated the second power soldier and Sorvectus's power armor suits just as Sorvectus cleared the blast door's frame. "Godspeed work, Hound Wrangler," congratulated Sorvectus. The Hound Wrangler nodded, pointing down a thin doorway, which led their way forward with a strobing red light amidst the interior battleship's darkness. "This way, Commander," replied the power soldier. Blasting down the following horde from behind, the power soldiers each passed through the blast door's widened frame as the Draster Gorge sprayed out pools of miasma and consumed all the living beasts' bodies whole. "Quick, Hound Wranglers! The channeling sector is within reach!" shouted the fourth power soldier, who covered their formation's backward flank as he threw a sticky grenade of liquid fire onto the blast door's frame which they had passed. With the beasts behind temporarily hindered and inflamed, the power soldiers' unit continued forth, engaging their fission blades against the hell vultures up ahead, each fashioned by long legs of bioengineered bones as sharp and dense as steel blades. "Shia!" hissed a hell vulture, whose left wing had been cut off and combusted by Sorvectus's fission blade, whilst the second power soldier ahead pounded his power suit's hydraulic left fist through another hell vulture's mouth. Impaling a flying vulture with his pistol's hook, Sorvectus effigy barbed a hell vulture, throwing the ball of gory spikes and serrated blades against the flying horde which pursued them down the preceding hallways. Looking up to his left wrist's digimap, Sorvectus thrust his hand forward. "Down the hall to the right. The Demon Lord's channel sector awaits," shouted Sorvectus, emblazing a hell vulture's abdomen with one clean fission slice. "For Asdraelia," shouted the power soldiers, slaying down their corridor before the air in the hall had suddenly grown musky, automatically activating the air purifiers inside the Hound Wrangler's power suits. Approaching upon a small blast door, Sorvectus' platoon came to an obstacle, each laying cover fire down the now stampeding hellbeasts who scurried from behind as Sorvectus knelt down to the door. 89 exterminations, ha 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 ha, roared the third power soldier, displaying his own blood spear, which he lit at the tip with the fuming nozzle of his left wrist spewer's flamethrower. Placing his left fist against the small blast door, Sorvectus looked over his shoulder. 13 seconds until infiltration, roared Sorvectus, activating the hydraulic press of his fist, which bashed against the door with one weighty dent. 9 seconds, shouted Sorvectus, activating the hydraulic press for another dent against the door's midsection. The hydraulic fist reset for its final press. "Homecoming," roared Sorvectus, denting the blast door a third time before the door came loose wildly, flailing backward with a violent flight. A bright light shined from inside the channeling sector's breeding chambers, and Sorvectus arose from his position with one sturdy stature. "Diginet the door," boomed the fifth power soldier, covering the other soldier's entrance through the blast door's empty frame. Releasing his drones from his right wrist's nodes, the second power soldier directed the drones to cast a door-wide net over the empty frame, covering their rear. With emphatic fervor, the hell demons came piling through the doorway, each freezing within the temp-neutral net's freezing zone, and thereafter shattering to bloody death upon exiting the diginet. Endlessly piling from behind, the feverous horde died without cease, until the 50th member was soon to teach the remaining collective their boundary had been placed. Upon the 14th hellbeast's body shattering through the diginet's construct, Sorvectus had laid forth his right foot, entering a wide chamber within the channeling sector's domain. A wide glass window sat at the back of the room at an octagonal shape where a bed with drapes sat at the back. Atop this bed was a horrific broodmother, the spawn queen to the ship's hell horde. From her enlarged womb came crawling a horrific creature, a hell imp, one which slinked away into a nearby floor vent, as quickly as it was born, squealing throughout the battleship's interior. "Gah!" exhaled the spawn queen, moving slow as she was large, but thin as she was human. She was 3 times the size of a Hound Wrangler, but displayed the frame of a beautiful woman and the menace of a 3-horned succubus, and her breasts were as large as her deflating womb. "Miss Masta, aw," droned the Spawn Queen. "They says come," shared the Spawn Queen, covering herself beneath the bed's sheets. Casting himself in a robe, a 1-horned man exited his lavatory, hissing with a serpent's tongue, Ah, my queen, they've come to me at last, my comrades, hawked the freakish man's thick, sophisticated accent and curled tone. Atop his head was a mane of hair draped to his elbows, and beneath his robe hid a forked tail twisted with lashes of pink hairs. Lorzipel Valiusush, you are under extermination, declared Sorvectus, raising his fission blade to the air just as the Draster Gorge perched itself atop his right shoulder. Skuk-gu, ru-hoo, bellowed the Draster Gorge. Oh, but why? Commander Sorvical? Has family Sorvectus sought back their heirloom? Questioned Lorzipel. You were under command to this brig, and you let it suffer under your lusts, snarled Sorvectus, aiming the hook pistol towards the Spawn Queen. Lorzipel walked slow, gazing his horrific yellow eyes and cat-like irises towards Sorvectus. You are mistaken. Sorvectus, this is my prize, and my lusts were all but a byproduct to your oligarchy's reign. The solar system's demand one Thinka against your familial heraldry, hissed Lorzipel with unblinking eyes. Sorvectus squinted from beneath his helmet's visor. Your rule would have us to a collective hive mind's feasts. Our rule is determined by the zeal of honorable genealogies. Our feudal claims are beyond your horde's mindless consumptions, countered Sorvectus, watching Lorzipel hold before himself a remote control display upon a topographical map. We, Sorvectus, welcome you to join us, gestured Lorzipel, casting his hand towards the Spawn Queen, who clutched upon her scaled breasts as she unveiled herself from beneath the covers. Hold her beauty, suckle her embrace, and service to her love, to proclaim your dynasty, droned Lorzipel through his slicking serpent's tongue, all as the Spawn Queen swooned a euphoric moan to Lorzipel's smooth tone, caressing her swollen but dwindling womb. Standing to Sorvectus' left was the fourth power soldier, who instantly dropped his projectile weaponry, stumbling forth for the Queen's bed. No! Boomed Sorvectus, activating a control console atop his left wrist, locking the fourth soldier's power suit from motion. Oh! I want her! Oh, I must have her! Roared the fourth power soldier, writhing about inside his suit. Feast me bostrous, feed me your sinews. Shoot her, Sorvectus, before he succubizes, shouted the first power soldier. No, snarled Lorzipel, lifting up his remote control display. Within only 30 Universal Standard minutes, this ship will penetrate your homeworld's atmosphere, and my children will have yours, hissed Lorzipel with his deathly eyes locked upon Sorvectus, all as the fourth power soldier shook within his suit as if possessed. Your illusions of choice are futile. Drain me, my bostress, drain me. Ah, ha, ha. My fluids, they're vain without yours, screeched the power soldier, thrusting himself about in his motion-locked suit. We're done for time, Commander. Exterminate them, shouted the fifth power soldier, raising the flaming tip of his blood spear high. Cursed witch, muttered Sorvectus. Proliferate your progeny to her effigy, Valusush, snarled Sorvectus, blasting his impalement rod through the urethra of the Spawn Queen's spread legs, activating the expanding barb's frame with bloody eruption. Lorzipel's serpent tongue flew out of his mouth as his head turned towards his gored queen's remains. No, you infidel, shrilled Lorzipel, latching his tongue around Sorvectus' power suit's neck, dragging him down to his knees with the ceramite armor, alarming an imminent breach from external traumatic force. You shall cede severance. You have slain Mu Queen. The blood spear, shouted the first power soldier, looking to the fifth power soldier who tossed his flaming spear towards Lorzapel before stepping forth to unleash his flamethrower upon Lorzapel's outstretched tongue. Piercing Lorzapel in the upper left chest, Lorzapel had fallen to his left knee, looking up to the power soldiers with disgust and dismay, as his outstretched tongue now scorched to piercing heat. "Roa! Ah!" curdled Lorzapel's tortured voice. Storming in for a pierce through the neck, the third power soldier came jabbing in for Lorzapel's throat, just before his body had vanished with the colors of purple and red. Evaporating within an instant, Lorzapel's body transformed into a fleeting spirit, with the remote control display indicating full thrusting coordinates activated for the soldier's homeworld. "Go, Draster Gorge, exterminate him," ordered Sorvectus, sprinting for the blinking remote-controlled digimap. Latching onto Lorzapel's spirit, the Draster Gorge sunk its creature-like fangs deep into his fleeting spirit form's twisted tails, tugging voraciously before Lorzapel's spirit tails snapped off completely, dripping into a miasmic goo upon mutilation. The Draster Gorge absorbed the tail's miasma within its body as a minutia of the residue dripped into the room's steel floors below, instantaneously corroding away the metal where it sank. "Commander, the homeworld!" shouted the second power soldier, just as Sorvectus unlocked the fourth power soldier's suit. Commander? What's happened?" aimlessly questioned the fourth power soldier, standing up with a noticeable stupor, despite his power suit's inability to hobble or stagger. "Asdralia will be overrun in 26 minutes and 37 seconds. You must all escape this vessel. I will erupt the engine's reactor before it enters atmosphere." "Go!" shouted Sorvectus in swift arbitration, charging for the door's diginet. "No, sir. You will not make it past the Queen's Horde. We pursue the reactor together," asserted the second power soldier, following close behind. Without looking behind himself, Sorvectus signaled that the second soldier's diginet be deactivated. "Then we die as one, without a semblance of our heraldry to return home. Go, there's only haste," ordered Sorvectus, met by the diginet swiftly removing, unleashing the frothing demon horde back upon them as they scattered through the doors. The uproar of bullets and crackling fire roared throughout the battleship's corridors as the power soldiers passed back through the atrium and thermospliced above the battleship's position where they could enter the reactor room after 4 floors of thermospliced floors, and 3 infiltrations of the electrical wiring and venting which sat between each floor, excluding the floor above the reactor room. Crashing through the 4th floor's thermospliced frame, Sorvectus came crushing down upon a hell mutt, one whose head exploded upon Sorvectus' entry to the reactor room, followed by the Hound Wranglers. Wrestling and fission splicing the hell mutts apart, the power soldiers had reached their target destination. Raising his left wrist cannon for the reactor, Sorvectus readied his rocket propulsion system to maximum load, just before the 4th power soldier grabbed him by the shoulder. "Sir," requested the soldier, resting his arm out in a bend, readying for a handshake. "Apologies for earlier. It's been an honor, Patriarch." "No, brother. It's been our duty to family Sorvectus," returned Sorvectus, looking back to the reactor with his payload ready. "Halt the processions, brothers," approached the 2nd power soldier, pointing towards the 1st, 3rd, and 5th power soldiers thermosplicing into the vent hatch of the reactor room's back right heat exhaust. Cutting through the exhaust into outer space, the suction of the ship's outer atmosphere sucked upon the room's inhabitants as the Hellmut's corpses slung into open space and the soldiers' power suits' boots entered gravlock. "We are 16 minutes until atmosphere penetration. Once I erupt the reactor, activate your cryostasis procedures," shared Sorvectus through their transponder communications. With a bodily nod of each power soldier, each member replied, "Aye, Commander." Aiming his payload straight for the helm of the reactor's power cycler, Sorvectus released a powerful explosion right into the reactor's main power supplier, blasting pieces of metal and mechanical debris out in a violent eruption as the ship's upper floor collapsed down upon them. When your eyes gaze to the confines of galactic space, bask her morose glow, brothers, shouted Sorvectus with a charging hand signal, sprinting past multiple strands of strung-out debris before leaping into outer space, where he and the Hound Wranglers each cryo-froze into deep space. This has been The Heirloom's Purge, a story found within the Lexicon of Odds and Tales, written by Charles Arlington. Thank you for listening. If you would like to purchase the book itself, or explore more of Arlington's tales, you may seek the rest of his work through the link inside this video's description. It has been an honor to voice his work, and I wish you best in the rest of his fantasies.